Hello, good morning, or evening, or indeed afternoon, whatever time zone you find yourself in. Hope everyone is having a good weekend. So back with our regularly scheduled content. I think a few people have said, I saw Connor there say, missed the stream yesterday. So yesterday was a bonus stream. I had a bit of extra time, wanted to just do a bit more, bit of a kind of longer session. Normally Wednesdays and Sundays at this time is when I try and stream. So back to the usual stuff. If I ever get extra time in the future, we'll do another longer stream. Yes, Hans, I've figured out the problem with the logging library. We're going to do that first, and then hopefully put the logging library to rest and never have to touch it again, because it will just work, in theory. For anyone watching on Twitch, I had a quick play around with the settings. I've uploaded some emotes. I've configured some of the alerts and pop-ups, so hopefully it's a bit more Twitch-esque for you guys. And then for everyone on YouTube, I'm glad you're here. Chat tends to be a little bit bigger on YouTube, a little bit busier on YouTube, but we'll see how we get on. So quickly, this is where we left it off last time. So everyone who couldn't make it yesterday, we went from a cube to rendering lots of cubes. Ignore the broken colours. There's some culling issues and winding issues, all to be fixed in the future. But most importantly, we have a mouse movement, so we can now actually traverse our 3D scene. This is, by and large, okay. However, as you might be able to see, there is no way to change the orientation. So one of the things I want to do today is to add in mouse events, hook that up to the camera class. Extend the camera class to have some sort of concept of orientation in 3D space, and then smash those two together at high speed in the game so that we can kind of look around. So that's the plan. We'll see how far we get with that. What's the end game? I don't really know. Like, I want to make a game, a simple 3D game. I'm not really sure what yet. We're just kind of doing the mechanics of getting stuff rendering. I'm kind of keen to only build stuff that I think is actually useful for getting to a game, rather than just building out. So we're not building an engine. I think that's quite an important thing. Like, if you look at the code, or when we look at the code, I only add things that we need at that point in time. We don't try not to spend too much time adding things we don't need. That being said, I did roll my own logging library. You could argue whether that is needed or not, but it doesn't work, so we do need to kind of fix that today. But basically, the main program now creates a bunch of primitives. It creates some shaders, some materials, some meshes. It creates a renderer. It has this concept of a scene. So it has a concept of an entity, and then it has a concept of a scene. The scene is like a non-owning collection of entities to render, so we use this little range here to take our collection of entities that we built up and just basically convert them to pointers and stuff those into a vector. We have a camera class now. We have some way of tracking or pumping events from the window class. So we keep pumping events whilst we get them, handle those in different ways, and then we set a velocity for the camera. We can translate the camera, and then sort of the key thing is this render.render at the end, and the renderer takes a camera and a scene and basically renders the scene from the point of view of that camera, and then does some window swapping at the end. So that's pretty good. 60 viewers and 5 likes. I mean, I think the fact that anyone at all wants to show up and talk to me, listen to me talk, I think is absolutely amazing. It's kind of funny when for the people on Twitch, there is a hype train en route, inbound, in motion. I'm not quite sure of the nomenclature, but there's lots of bright lights going off on my screen. What's kind of interesting is that when I first sort of thought about doing streaming, I kind of looked up a load of advice online. What do you do? How do you kind of get into it? Blah 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 blah. And the sort of common advice was just go live to 0 viewers. You won't get any viewers. You just go live and you just kind of practice that. You kind of use the opportunity of talking to no one to get used to, do this. And the first stream I did, 100 people showed up. So I was like, okay, right, well, I guess I'm just going to have to figure this out as I go along. So I normally get, depending on the topic, across Twitch and YouTube, anywhere between 1 to 500 viewers, which I think is pretty good. It is exactly 1 to 500 more than I ever expected. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so what's up with the log? So let's see if we can. So we kind of half fixed it, but I wasn't really satisfied with the fix. So let's go to, I guess, camera, and we were basically doing log debug translation, because our translation was full of nulls, or full of nans, I should say, and we wanted to see what was going on. So let's just build that and check that still works. Yes, I'm using Vim with WSL, but I'm using this project here called MSVC Wine, which allows me to run the MSVC toolchain under Wine, so effectively allows to cross-compile, and it works with Clang D. It works with all my tooling. It's pretty good, and I'm pretty pleased with it. So yeah, so let's just build this, and we should get a load of logging. So the problem we had is we ended up having to, we effectively have this print object which allows us to have, which we have a constructor which takes a char strings the first, which is our message, which is our format, as in like std format and std print and print ln, then a variable number of arguments, and then we default the source location at the end so we can get access to, you know, the file name, the function name, etc., etc. Now, the reason we had to use a struct rather than a function is because we needed a deduction guide, because there are some issues with the default argument at the end being bundled into the args, and we didn't want that, and there was this weird implicit like failing cast, and there's a whole thing. So why do I use, what do I sell? NeoVim can be used on Windows. Yes, but as far as I'm aware, I can't get to tmux on Windows, which is actually really what I want. So anyway, we use this deduction guide, blah, 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 and I think the issue we're having, so basically we ended up having to pass, we had a classic L value to R value, like, failed conversion. There was some, deep in the bowels of the 2000 page standard, there was a section 3, subsection 4, part C, clause X, which was basically not allowing us to deduce these arguments correctly. We ended up having to pass them by value, and then pass them by value here, so this has kind of got like a double copy, which I'm not particularly pleased of. It works, but it's not, in my mind, it's not right. So the aim is to rectify that. So what I basically realised was I had a little play with this off stream, but then I removed all the changes because I'm only trying to write code that that gets committed in live. So I did have a little play around with it. I think the issue lies somewhere in the interplay between a partial specialization of a class template and then the type deduction. What I realized is I think I was being too clever. I think I was being too clever because the reason I did this partial specialization is because I wanted to take this variable number of arguments but insist that the first one was message. And then when you kind of got this deduction guide, it's like, well, how do I kind of peel off the first one? And sort of the classic template metaprogramming technique is to provide a specialization where you have this, blah, 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 blah. But I think this is largely pointless because what I've realized you could do is you don't have to deduce this at all. You can basically just say I will have a variable number of arguments. You don't need to provide specialization at all. You can just say there's going to be a variable number of arguments, and then in the template deduction guide you can basically say the first one is going to be a const char. So this then basically says I'm expecting, when you construct this object and you give it a const char star and then some number of arguments, those arguments become the template arguments, and then we can pass those here, and then we can then forward these. So I think that should work, but there's actually, I think we can take this a little bit further. Thank you for, so someone said that they've never written a C++ before, but they find this quite watchable. I kind of do try and talk in terms of like the abstractions and the mechanics. We can kind of get quite language lawyery with some of it, but ultimately we want to be building up something where we don't have to worry too much about the nitty-gritty details of the language, and we can just like build some primitives and start sticking them together. So I'm curious actually for anyone on YouTube. So Twitch tells me when there's an ad break, but I don't know if YouTube tells me when there's like none of the tooling I have for YouTube seems to say when there's an ad break. So I don't know if people see ads at different times, and it's kind of part of the algorithm. I'm not really sure, but do let me know on YouTube about how you kind of the ads are served to you, because like Twitch now it very much says like you have N seconds left until the advert ends. Never had an ad break midstream. Do you have YouTube Premium though? Kind of curious to know. Thank you, Cold Glasses, Cheer Wizard, and Lantiest for subscriptions and following on Twitch. Very much appreciated. Anyway, I'll wait. It's also very much Christmas in the Bags household now, so I do have a little glass of port to kind of keep me going through this. But I've never used Pygame, so I don't have any thoughts on it, and that's kind of my default position on most things. If I've not used it, then I can't really have any thoughts on it. Okay, so so this works, right? But we can take this one step further, because actually we don't really want const char star here. We don't want just a random C string. We want something that kind of works better with the mechanics of formatting. So what we can actually pass here is a std format string, which also takes those args, right? I'll call that message. And then here we can take std format string args. Okay. So, and this will make sense in a minute what this kind of does. So we take the format string there with the message, and then what we can do here is we can do format message, and then std forward args, and then just pop that bracket there, take that one off. Let's just check that matches up. So we've got the log line, we've got the file name, the line number, and then we want the message at the end. So there's now one. Oh no, wait a minute. We've got the type, the file name, the line, and the message. So let's just see if that blends. So that now works, right? So let's just, right, so that works. But now the interesting thing here is, because we're actually using a proper format string primitive, if I go back to the camera and say, oh, I made a mistake, right? I said there was going to be 2 arguments when there's actually only going to be 1. If this works, it's now a compiler error, okay? So we now have like full compile time safety on our logging code, that if we say we're going to print 2 arguments and we only provide 1, then it won't even compile. So, and this was the original vision I had when I wrote this, like sort of quite lightweight, but actually turns out to be quite in-depth logging, like logging functionality. I really wanted this compile time safety, and it's only a logging library. At the end of the day, it doesn't really, you could argue it doesn't really matter, but I still think it was interesting, and the mechanics of it quite interesting. So now we kind of got a type safe, like a fully type safe logging library where we can't accidentally misprint the number of arguments, and all the arguments we want to print have to have valid formatters available for them. So yeah, that's what we got with that. So have I missed a? Okay, so that's where we're at with that. You watch my YouTube videos and didn't know I streamed? Well, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming along. There is a new video uploaded yesterday. It's doing pretty well. The analytics are looking pretty good. Might need a slight tweak to the thumbnail, but so far looking pretty good. But yeah, I like to do more. I think the videos are more like low-level reverse engineering, assembly, hacking, that kind of thing, and the streams tend to be a little bit more like forward engineering, programming, that kind of thing. But anyway, so I suppose we better just commit this up, right? So commit, like, fix log. Cool, nailed it. First commit of the stream, done. So I'm quite happy with that. Hopefully now we don't have to touch it again. Evening, thanks for joining us. I'm glad you're having a good time. So the next thing now is, as we saw, we had no way of like orientating the camera in 3D space. We can strafe, we can move backwards, we can move forwards. We could move up and down if we wanted to, but there's kind of no concept of orientation. So we need to add that today. So the steps I'm thinking to do this are, the first is we need to get mouse inputs. So we have the concept of an event now, which is a variant of all the other events we support. So we have a stop event and a key event being, a key press and a state. And you've got a stop event, which is just an empty class, which just signifies that the game needs to stop. So, for instance, clicking the X button on the window will fire off a stop event. We now need a mouse event, and we need to kind of fill that with some data that we can then query and then use, and then we can try and, extend the camera class, like I said at the beginning, to be orientatable, I guess. The thing I kind of left with, the reason we didn't do this yesterday, because we were streamed for nearly 4 hours yesterday, but the reason I kind of said I didn't want to do it yesterday was because I was like, it's going to need quaternions, we're going to have to build out our quaternion class, and there's like a lot of stuff to do it. I was looking through the notes I have from like previous engine I built, and I didn't do the camera class like that. I just did it with your pitch and roll. In fact, even less than that, because the roll is always 0. You just assume that the camera can't roll like that. It can just look up and look sideways. So in fact, we don't need any of that. We can just do it with simple trigonometry. So we'll see where we get to today. So this is our quick reminder. This is our window class. This represents a Windows window, or a Win32 window, like the actual thing that you see. It does all the OpenGL setup, sets up for rendering, sets the version of OpenGL we're going to use, sets the the double buffering, all that kind of good stuff. Sets the bit depth for the colors, blah 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 blah. Resolves all the OpenGL functions which you have to do manually because it's a pain on Windows, etc. etc. Sets up the debugging, and then most importantly, at the top we have this window proc function, and this handles Windows messages. So Windows, like the operating system, will send us messages, and this is how we respond to them. And if it's a close message, i.e. someone pressed the X in the top right, then we queue up a stop event. If it's a key up, then we queue up a key event. If it's a key down, we queue up a key down. And then anything else, we just basically say do the default Windows. So we don't just swallow events. We just do the default Windows event handling chuff. So we need to add something here to key events, but it's a little bit more nuanced than just this, because what we want to be able to do is we don't want, there's multiple ways of doing everything, and there's multiple ways of doing everything we're doing here. I don't want absolute mouse position. What I want is mouse delta. I want the event to fire when the mouse has moved, and then we can respond to that, rather than us basically continuously having to get the mouse position and figure out if there's a delta and figure out what we need to do, etc., etc. That's what we're going to do. So we need to kind of configure the windows a little bit more. So Connor just said he had an ad on YouTube. Interesting. I had absolutely no. I have a button which says insert ad, and a button that says delay ad, but nothing that says when they are. I suspect it's like ads on YouTube videos where it's tailored to the individual. YouTube profiles you to get an understanding of your tolerance to ads, and then basically shows you ads pretty much up until the point where you would get bored of it, but not quite at that point. Okay, so let's configure our window to get events, Windows events. So somewhere when we create the window, I'm just remembering how all my code works now. Somewhere down here, before we call all the resolve stuff, what we want to do is do raw input device. So this is a ID equals, this is a Windows struct which stores information about an input device, and so we want to say the usage page equals the HID usage page generic, and then the usage equals HID usage generic mouse. Oh, steady, that's my code. These might be in a different header file because it's not auto-completed, and I'll have to look up what they are in a minute. And the DW flags is redev input sync, and then the wind target equals window. So basically all this does is just set up a struct to define what kind of input we want and where to get it from, effectively. What have I done wrong? Window, yeah, thank you. And then that shouldn't be there. Okay, so this should format it. Okay, so where are these living? Oh, because again, I've got a few notes on this before, so I'm not just pulled HID usage page generic out of my arse. HID usage.h. That will be the badger. So that is going to want to be in there. And I feel it should be, because it's a system header like that. Okay, so now it's saying unused read. Okay, cool. So now we can keep going. So now we can do ensure. Ooh, nope, not there. Ensure that register raw input devices RID 1 size of RID equals true, and that would be failed to register input device. So this will just register that with the window that we want input devices. So this will then basically mean that when those messages, when Windows gets those messages, it will forward them onto our window. Yeah, so the goal of today's stream is to get mouse input working so we can orientate the camera in 3D space, and then we'll see where we get to after that, see how long that takes. Mr. T and register. Apparently I missed a T somewhere, but I'm not sure. That's a typo anyway. Oh yeah, register just now. Okay, let's actually have a look at the error. I better not be. Is it in the log function? Christ. Maybe we're not done with the log function yet. I try and read YouTube chat and Twitch. Sorry, I know there's a whole lot of YouTube stuff coming, but like it's kind of, I do try and divide my time equally between them. Yeah. Okay. Oh, of course, I left the bug in there, didn't I? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Okay. Right. So that will register the device for us. So now what we can do is we can go up to the message handler and say, in the case where we get a WM input, then we need to create ourselves a auto raw equals raw input object. And then we should be able to do get raw input data. And then the input with that will be our L param. Let's just get this. Let me just get this up. So retrieves the raw input from the specified device. So we've basically been told there is raw input available for us, which we've registered for. So we then have to actually get to kind of, because there's different raw inputs devices, we have to kind of reach in and actually get that. So the raw input will be the L param from WM input, which is one of our function parameters. And then we will want it to be input rather than the header. And then the other stuff is just like pointers to where you want to stick it and just general bookkeeping chuff. So let's wire that up. So just bring up the chat window. That was fun. My machine completely blue screened. Oh, now you have to watch as everything. I've literally just straight up just rebooted everything. Piss off. I've absolutely no idea what happened there. That was fun. So give me a second while. Hopefully not too many people have disappeared. If you have, I don't blame you. There's probably better things to do on a Sunday evening. So back on YouTube. Yep. Okay. Anyone on Twitch out there can comment saying we're back? Sound is echoing. Great. Ox Coffee is my own shop. Yes. I work with a roaster in the UK to produce that. Okay. Back refresher. Okay, fine. That's never happened to me before. I did not understand the BSOD error, and I did not hang around long enough to find out. Okay, you'll have to now watch me rebuild my dev environment sort of from scratch, which is going to be fun. So cd projects game, and then I spin up tmux, then I open up a new pane and I go into build, then I export the MSVC environment variables because I've still yet to put them in my bash rec, and then I do that in both of those. So export 64 bin 64 and then nbim, which should bring that back up, and then disable Copilot, and then wherever we were with whatever we were doing, which was the Windows code. So let's see how much, which one do I want? Recover? Got that far. Okay, and then we'll just check that it builds. So cmake -- build. Okay, and source game. Okay, we're back in business. It also means now that I have none of my notes open. I have literally nothing going for me, so we're just going to have to figure this out as we go along, which is fine. I've also lost the Twitch and YouTube pop-outs that I use, so I am kind of literally, all I can see now is chat. I can't see anything else. And in fact, I can't even write to the chat because the tool I use that combines both chats makes it read-only. So apologies if you need me to type anything to you. I'll just have to maybe hold it up to the screen and you can OCR it. No, I probably won't implement still image myself. I did say, great question, I did say we're going to do as much as we can from scratch. The one things I probably will not do is parsing existing file formats, just because I don't, one, it's a lot of effort to implement a spec fully, and two, I think there's minimal learnings to have from just implementing a spec, and possibly if we need a physics engine I might not do that either, because I've tried to make a physics engine before and it's just it is a voyage of misery with lots of headache and minimal interesting output. So Twitch is saying that the voice echoes. Can someone else confirm on Twitch whether that is the case or not? Otherwise, it was just you, I'm afraid. You had the stream open twice, that would probably do it. Okay, right. So let me just... Oh my goodness. I press... Oh, all my... Amazing. I've just pressed Control N on Firefox and it literally brought up all my old windows exactly where they were. That is outstanding. Okay, we're back in business. We're back in business. Caesar, thank you for just subscribing on YouTube. Very much appreciated. Thank you for joining us and being part of it. Yeah, so all any dependencies we do bring in, I will build from scratch within CMake. So CMake will use like fetch content, it'll check it out, it'll build it, it'll do it part of that. So and it normally probably pinned to a version as well. So there should be minimal surprises for us as we go along. Yeah, I don't know why the little notification didn't pop up for a subscriber. I need to fix that. I thought I fixed it earlier, and I tested it all, and I tried, and I emulated all the different events, and they all popped up. But anyway, what can you do? I am but one person trying to figure all this out as I go along. And right now, I am kind of at the mercy of my machine. I did notice earlier the fan stopped spinning my machine, and it got quite warm. I don't know if that is... It seems unlikely that would cause a residual issue, but hey-ho. Okay, so I want to do get raw input data, input data, and then from that we're going to do the lparam. We're going to do rid input. We're going to pass in our raw object, and then the bit I tried to do last time, maybe didn't like me writing Windows code, was I need a DW size equals nope. What is it? It's get raw. I bet is it a uint? Get raw input data. A uint size of raw input, and then so that's raw, and then DW size, and then size of raw input input header. Okay, so let's try that. Well, I'm glad, Caesar. I'm also glad you. Apologies if that's not how you pronounce your name. I'm very ignorant of, unfortunately, like the correct pronunciation in other languages, and I see you have an accent over your E, so I don't actually know how that influences the pronunciation of it. So I do apologise if I get it wrong. But I'm glad you can come along and catch it. What is the scope of this? Again, the scope is just to kind of make a game from scratch. We're just going to see what that kind of means as we go along. I'm trying not to build an engine or a framework. I want to build a game, and that's why I'm very sort of keen on, like, you know, the design decisions. All kind of everything we do should be driving us towards a game. I'm trying to read from Twitch and from this at the same time, yeah. But what I was trying to say is to the person whoever who's come along today and this is their first stream, thank you very much. You're very welcome here. And also you got to see the first B-sod we've had live, which is exciting. A raid, 34 people just come in. That's exciting. Hello, welcome all. My machine just blue screen of death, so you've picked an absolutely excellent time to join, because I'm only slightly flustered trying to regain not only my composure but also the state of the project that we're in at the moment. So welcome. That is a nice boost on numbers. It's very exciting. Could be bots, but I choose to believe. I choose to look on the positive side of things. So let's fix our errors. So compiler error. Uint conversion from integral type to pointer type requires return from cast, so you cannot just wang this lparam in because it's a generic lparam type, and this is going to expect a hraw input. But like all problems in C++, you can fix it with a reinterpret cast. That's a bit of a joke, by the way, because reinterpret cast is riddled with undefined behavior. I suspect this is also undefined behavior, but we'll see where we get to. Oh man, if I have no idea what caused the BSOD. Yep, Windows programming via Linux, because that's just the best way to do things. Thank you, Jims Wurner. I'm glad you've enjoyed the videos and passing people on. That's very kind of you. Okay, right. So now we can get the raw input data. What is the return of this? What does this return? If an error occurs, the return value is uint -1. So let's just ensure that doesn't equal -1. What? Oh, that's very strange. It's a -1, but it's a uint. So let's just make sure we cast that correctly. Failed to get raw input. And then this should also be and size of, oh good, missed off loads of them. These might not all work, some of these might be hash defined, in which case it doesn't always like it, but let's see what we get to. Okay, missing, I've balked this somewhere, 62, I've unbalanced something. So if that doesn't equal, ensure that doesn't equal -1, that's there, Could even be correct, could not be correct. It doesn't like one of my constants. I bet it's this one? Ensure, good question, I'll show people in a second. Conversion from int to uint requires a narrowing conversion. Ensure identifier not found. Oh, because it needs to be a game ensure. Ensure is just a simple helper function I wrote that will take a predicate and a message and will throw an exception with that formatted message. So it allows me to kind of simply build up exception messages. We could probably use format string now that actually we kind of figured out how that works a bit. And it allows me to specialize it for other internal types as well. So we have like an internal auto release type, and I can ensure that that is set as well. It's basically just a simple way of just checking a predicate and throwing if it fails. So on Twitch, someone was just asking about, so they saw the video about the breakout clone and wondering if I can help out on another programming issue they might have in a game. What I would say is that's not really, I don't really tend to, that's not really the purpose of these streams. We kind of focus on something different. However, I'm more than happy for people to reach out. If you go to the YouTube channel, I have an email address there. Please just email me. It's open. I'm happy for people to email me about things. I provide zero guarantee I can help or will be able to provide any form of useful response, but contacting me via email is normally the best way to kind of get my attention on those sort of things. Literally going to have to static cast this, aren't I? What a pain. So it's like throw if you pass. It's throw if you pass false as the first argument. If the predicate is false, so if this does equal -1, which is the error case, then it will throw, and it allows me to basically build up an exception message kind of by hand. Sorry, not by hand, automatically. Okay. Does this blend? It does blend. Okay, so let's... So then we got the raw data. There's different types of raw data that could be in there, like mouse wheels and stuff like that, but we only care if raw.header.dw type is equal to the rim type mouse. And before we go any further, what I'm going to do here is going to go log, game log debug mouse event. I just want to I think we just need to see if we've plumbed this incorrectly and if this gets us actually mouse input. And then we can go and look at actually extracting out the specific bits like the delta, the XY delta and all that kind of stuff, and then stuffing that into a class and, you know, all that kind of engineering good stuff. Let's just actually verify we've got mouse button. Well, I mean, I think we have, because every time I move the mouse I get a lot of chuff. No, everything is synchronous and single threaded. It's because the Windows proc has to be, well, it's easiest to pass it in as a free function rather than like a member function. So the easiest way to kind of save off those events is just to stick them in a it's not a global queue because it's in an anonymous namespace. It's global for this translation unit. And then at the bottom, when we pump events, we just basically consume from that queue and then return them, which, because it's all single-threaded, or at least I'm hoping is all single-threaded, we shouldn't have any issues. I'm glad you enjoyed the video. It's doing pretty well. I'm pretty pleased with it. Okay, so let's get out some deltas. So where's the... Let's see if we can find the input data. Raw input structure has the data union, and inside that has the mouse. So inside raw mouse should have the motion in the y direction. This is assigned relative motion or absolute motion depending on the value of the s flag, and this is the assigned relative motion or absolute motion depending on the value of the s flag. So I think by default we get relative, which is what we want, because we effectively want a delta. Yeah, so using the problem with C++, one of the many problems with C++ is that they don't really like breaking backwards compatibility. So all the new features tend to be, thanks for the Prime sub. All the new features tend to be adding things to make the old things simpler, if that makes sense. So initialization, which is an incredibly complex topic in C++, and I think someone's written an entire book on initialization. There are, I think, about 18 to 22 ways of initializing an integer, all with subtle differences on what that actually means. And sort of you're kind of very used to writing, you know, like you say, sort of like matrix for m round brackets. This, not only is this, I mean, this has certain issues like this anyway, right? Like what does this line here do? It would be the question. Does it declare a matrix M and call the default initializer, or does it declare a function that returns a matrix 4 called M that accepts no arguments? This here is basically the standard actually says when this. So this is an ambiguity in the language, right? And the standard actually says when this is an ambiguity, it should assume it's declaring a new function. See, look, even the empty parenthesis interpreted as a function declaration, right? This is known in C++ as the most vexing pass because it is very complex to get right and is quite unintuitive, I think. So but you can't break backwards compatibility. So what they did was they introduced a new syntax, curly brace initialization, informally curly brace initialization, which doesn't have that ambiguity. It also doesn't allow, as someone said, narrowing conversions. It has a few other bits and pieces involved in it. So I tend to prefer to use curly braces because I find it's actually the less ambiguous way of using them. But that's kind of my opinion. A bit of a tangent there. I think on that tangent, I think 10 people tuned off on Twitch. Maybe just because I was speaking about initialization of integers for too long. So apologies, but that's kind of what you get in for here. Yes, someone has said Nikolai Justus, I can never pronounce his surname, has a video on YouTube with all possible ways to initialize the variable integers in C++. That was at CPPCon, and I am sat in the front row. So there you go, just a little drop for you there. I don't think you can see me in the video, but I was there and I did see it live. So curly brace will, see if I get this right, will default initialize. Zero initialize is a kind of subset of default initialization, I think, which is for primitive types or types without a constructor, in which case the bits are zeroed. But I'd have to double check that. Yeah, so if you actually, as a quick aside, if you go to the zero initialization page in CPU reference, if you go to the bottom, it's like, here are the types of initialization. Zero initialization isn't actually listed there because I think it's a subset. It's a subset of one of the others. Yeah, this is not the syntax for zero initialization, which does not have a dedicated syntax in the language. So it's kind of zero initialization is performed in certain situations. It is kind of not considered a form of initialization by itself. But now we're just language lawyering, and really, it's a waste. It's a waste of everyone's time. Okay, right. So let's see if we can do. Let's see if we can do this. Const auto x equals raw dot data dot mouse dot last x, and we'll fx ry, and now let's print those out and see what that looks like. I did a video on C a while back. My thoughts on C are it is a low-level language which is comparatively simple, has a very simple standard library, a very simple language structure. I think if you're looking for a way to kind of get into learning about pointers specifically and like low-level like memory management, I think C is kind of a good starting point. Because it doesn't have all the chuff of C++, basically. It's easier to not get lost and just focus on the mechanics of actually, learning pointers and dynamic memory allocation and all those sort of things, and manual memory management. I would not build a large-scale project in C. I just don't think that, for me personally, the language doesn't scale enough. Like, you have to, for instance, it doesn't have templates, right? So it doesn't have generics without using macros. It doesn't have any built-in data types, so now you're having to write your own dynamic array, your own linked list, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't have RAII. Even if you don't like object-oriented code and you don't want to have like a massive class hierarchy, blah, 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 you still end up emulating a lot of that in C anyway with function pointers inside structs, but you don't get all the support of the language. And that's my opinion as a C++ developer, not a C developer. So I'm obviously biased, but that's kind of my take from it. So the standard saying goes that in C, it's easier to shoot yourself in the foot than in C++, but in C++, if you do manage to shoot yourself in the foot, you will blow your leg clean off. Okay, cool, so that's some deltas. It's only got integer precision, but I think that's probably going to be okay for us. So now what we need to do is bung this into an event. So let's create, let's get up the key event. What does that look like? It's Christmas in the Bags household, so there's port. Yeah, I really enjoy. Someone asked this kind of like, what's your day job, stuff like that. A large part of what I do at my job is I support and mentor and teach our graduates and interns. So I really just enjoy teaching. I really enjoy just talking about C++, but not just C++, but also like engineering and how do you actually use software engineering to drive value for a business, right? That's what I really enjoy, which is why I love doing these live streams and just kind of hanging out and answering questions. So the progress is slow, but because I take the time to try and answer as many questions as I can. So yeah, that's kind of how I structure these things. So let's, I don't want key, let's do mouse event and mouse event, and this is going to have a, so the question is, do I want to encapsulate the actual granularity of data I get from the API? Do I capture it at the precision that I wish it would give it to me, or do I not care and I'm wasting my time? I'm gonna go for the middle one. No, I don't need key states. Sorry, I just haven't finished deleting all this yet. I kind of smashed down to the private members. I think I'm gonna do it as float because although I don't get given it to although it is not given to me in float precision, it's given to me as an integer. I kind of wish it was a float, and then the follow-on code will use floats. Like when I set your pitch and, well, not roll, but your and pitch, those will be in floats. So I think I'm going to kind of take what I wish I was given, if that makes sense, and just cast it at this point. And that way I'm kind of communicating in terms of the types I want, and I just kind of have to make do, with the data I've been given. And then delta x, delta y, and then we can do auto delta x const float, and then fxry. Nailed it. Yeah, I don't know about UI yet. I suspect we will probably use DRM GUI because everyone does at some point for at least debugging. But in terms of the actual game UI, I imagine we'll get some sprites and do like a separate a separate UI render paths. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Okay, so let's include mouse event and then do something gross by just yanking all this over and then deleting all this chuff, and then we can go mouse event delta x underscore delta x, and then delta y underscore delta y, because I gotta format those, and then these just become mouse event and that goes like that, and then we do that, and then format it so it gives us some space, and then return delta x, and then down here. So nice simple encapsulation of that data. So again, the reason I've done this is because I effectively want, once the mouse event has been created, I want it to be immutable. I want to only provide read-only access to the deltas. I don't want a setter, and I don't want these to be public, because in my mind, because it's more philosophical than anything, but once the for want of a better word, the engine or the platform has produced an event saying this, and this is the data that was associated with that event, it doesn't really make any sense for me to for me to change it. And in fact, that sounds like it could lead to bugs. So I just kind of head that off at the pass, as it were, and make it mutable. Make it immutable. Again, we don't need mouse button capture now, so I'm not adding it. When we need it, I'll add it. And that's kind of my philosophy on this whole thing. The problem with making them const members is then your class then suddenly becomes non-copy assignable, right? I can't do mouse event equals something else. Not that I would want to, but const members have a side effect on the outer class, because they then provide some sort of restrictions on what you can do with them. And again, I don't want that. I just want a mouse event. I can copy it, I can copy assign it, whatever. But if I'm given a mouse event, then I cannot mutate the data inside it. So I tend to avoid const members where possible, because it does have an implication on the class design. Or is it not movable? Am I thinking of references? You can't... Well, move of that should be fine for primitive types, because the move is equivalent to a copy. But if I'd allocated a mouse event, right, and inside that is 2 floats, and these were const, then I couldn't do like... Couldn't do that, right? Because these would be internally const and therefore non-mutable. Again, why would I don't want to impose that restriction on the class unnecessarily, because this is not part of the interface that I want. Like, whether your class is copyable or movable is an inherent part of your interface, and then it defines how users will use that, and I don't want to arbitrarily restrict that when it's not necessary. What I do want to restrict is the ability for people to dick around with the internals. Okay, so let's make this up. And then we will do event mouse_event.h, and then we'll whack this in here. Okay, let's just check if that blends. One second, I'm just find my magical command. Okay, so that blends. Fix up my compile commands JSON file. Okay, right. So now back to the window. Close that. So now we should be able to do g_event_queue.emplace game include mouse event. So we'll get the mouse event, and this takes 2 floats, as we know. So static cast float x y. Close the curly brace, close that. Stick that in the queue hole, which should automatically get pumped, which means now we go back to main. Don't know why those are there. Get the mouse event, go down to our handler and do else if const extra stood same as t game mouse event. Let's do game log. Have we added printers for the others? I have not. Interesting. Maybe we should add those super quick. So let's just bring that over. Sorry, I'm just going to super quick add some formatting so we can just print these out. So we'll specialize the formatter for a game key event. And then all this stuff is fine, and then we're basically going to do key event, and then that will have key event. Ooh, steady. Obj, and then this will be obj dot key obj dot state, which we do have printers for because I remember doing them last time, so that should work. Then we can just yank that down, go over to the mouse event. Oh my goodness! Stick this at the bottom. Do %s key event mouse event. Change all those, and then here this will be obj dot delta x obj dot delta y. Check that still blends. Yeah, I did it for the keys, not the events. Good, well remembered. Right, and now we can basically say game debug log. So no, game debug, and then I should just be able to put arg in here, and this should work. He said, and I've said that many times. Nope, format is not passed. Of course it's not. I mean it is, but I need to tell you that it is. Debug is not a member of game. That is correct. You are correct, compiler. Rarely are you wrong. Only sometimes. Okay, right. Zip. Okay. Whew. Right, quick breather before we continue. I might just comment this up first. So where are we at? We added, let's add the mouse event. Add mouse event, and then we add formatter for key event, and then we commit pump mouse events. Right, so I guess really now we need to start thinking about embedding this into the camera class. As I find, so Gubby, apologies, I cannot pronounce your username. I get this comment a lot, and I find it really interesting that people say that, oh, you know, they enjoy watching the content, but they don't fully like understand it. And I mean, I guess that means I'm kind of, if not, I mean, maybe, I'm probably not explaining it very well, but at least I'm entertaining along the way, and I guess that's all I can really hope for. But I'm glad you found the content. I'm glad you're enjoying it. FPS counter when? I mean, VSync is on, so you can just kind of assume it's whatever because this is not intensive. You can probably just assume it's whatever my refresh rate is. Maybe when we do text rendering, we can throw in a little FPS counter as like a good kind of test of that. But text rendering is a nightmare. Using the Windows API, is it direct text to render out font glyphs is a massive pain. But I have done it before, and if we do it, we will probably do it that way from scratch. You know, why not? Okay, where are we at? Okay, so the camera, is kind of an abstraction over. You can think of the camera class as an abstraction over two matrices, the view and the projection. The view basically defines where the camera is in 3D space, or effectively where all the objects are in 3D space relative to the camera. And then the projection is basically how do you map the 3D space to a 2D screen, like the field of view and the clipping planes and stuff like that. And you can see here the camera takes all that stuff. It takes where it's going to be, where it's going to look at, the up direction, because where is your camera effectively orientated in 3D space, and then the field of view, the width, height, near plane, far plane, blah 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 blah. And then our API is pretty simple. We have the ability to translate it, so that we move the camera. So that's what the game is doing when it gets the WASD key presses. It's calculating effectively a velocity, and it's translating it by that. So each tick of the quote-unquote game translates the camera by that amount. And then we have the view and the projection, which is just a way of getting the raw float data out. This is kind of like an escape hatch, if you will. It kind of breaks the encapsulation of camera, but we need it because we need to, at some point, get raw float data into the graphics card, into OpenGL. Blend and build, I just use blend because I find it amusing. I don't know. I've never heard anyone else say will it blend. Well, actually, no. The person I picked it up from, who I used to work with, it's not a technical term. I do try and sort of not let my own personal idiosyncrasies get in the way of things. But sometimes, I just have certain habits that are hard to break. Look at is a function, in the sense of that is how it's calculated. Look at, the matrix for look at here is how it's calculated, but it takes the look at position, so the point in 3D space where you're looking at, and then it takes the current place in the up, and it calculates, that's how it calculates the view. So I guess you could argue I'm overloading the terms, but because the whole point of the abstraction is that I think, look at is, to a user, it's more important to know that here is the point that the camera is looking at. And I guess this should really be called calculate view. Like, this is called perspective. This should be view. No one's perfect. We all make mistakes. So there's a couple of other things we need to capture as we go along here, because we're gonna. Well, let's take a look at what we've got, right? So we can kind of see what the problem we're going to have is. We calculate a velocity, which is a vector, which is a normalized 3D vector, and then that's what we translate by. And then the x, and we don't care about y, but the x and z components are basically if we press the D and A keys or the S and W keys. So really, we can only ever move along the original axes, like the x and z axes. You can imagine that if you turn 45 or pi over 4, whatever it is, angles, degrees radians to the right, then when you press the A and D key, you're going to want to move some amount of x and some amount of z at the same time. So that's kind of the problem we need to solve. So the idea here is that the camera is going to need to have a direction that it's pointing at, and then that's what we will effectively change. And then it also needs to have the concept of a degree that is perpendicular to that. So what we then do is when we press W, we will move the camera along the direction it's currently facing, or back if it's S, and then if we strafe, so A and D, we will then move it along the right vector. So that's my plan anyway. We'll see how far we get. We're doing okay for time. So I prefer to actually do the interface. So we're going to want auto direction const vector 3, and then auto right const vector 3. And then at some point as well, we're going to need to be able to adjust the camera's going to have a concept of pitch and yaw and pitch, and then we're going to need to be able to adjust those. So let's go with this. Let's just implement these methods first. So we already saw the direction in the up, which is good because that means we can then infer the right without having to calculate it, without having to store it, which is what I'll do in the first instance. So SF camera. Let's bring this up over here. Swap these over. Okay, so we have auto direction right. Okay, and then these should be camera. So this should return direction, and then this here should return vector3 normalize of vector3 cross direction and up. So the cross product just gets the cross product takes two vectors and gives another one that is perpendicular to the other two. So if we know the way we're looking and we know where up is, then the cross product has to be one that's pointing 90 degrees to our right. So this will effectively be the strafe direction. Steve's forgotten to convert from radians to degrees or vice versa. Happens to us all. You have to pay for your sins. I'm going to shamelessly steal that joke, but thank you for that. Okay, so where we're at, so we can get that. So now the next thing is the camera class is going to have some sort of concept of orientation. So again, I remember saying in the stream last time, oh, I'm going to do this with quaternions, and then I lied because I don't actually want to do it with quaternions. I just want to do this with two of the three Euler primitives, features, what's the word I'm looking for? Yaw and pitch, but not roll, basically. And then I believe, if I can remember from A-level maths, I don't think we'll end up with gimbal lock from that. Float, pitch, float, yaw. Okay, so we'll go up here and then pitch and your axes. Yeah, that might be the word I'm looking for. I suspect one of these won't need to be 0. I suspect I need to set these to kind of be orientated down the z-axis to start with, but we'll fix that as we get to it. Okay, so what do we want to do? I want to be able to set. Do I want to set the yaw or do I want to adjust the yaw? Let me just check my notes to see what I did before for this. Somewhere in here, I should have had this ready, but I didn't. And here we are. Okay. With the mouse event, adjust. Okay. So let's do direction right. So getters and I guess setters. I've already messed that up anyway, so we'll just keep going here. Also adjust your float. Adjust. Sorry. Void. And adjust pitch. Adjust. Okay. Yes, but if I'm only doing, so I think my question was if I only do, you're right, there shouldn't be const, good spot straight away. Sorry, so I write const by default, like my default stance is const, so I kind of get a little bit overzealous with it. But I think my question was on the math side, if I only have 2 of the 3 axes, can I still get gimbal lock? So I guess the first thing we want to do here is do pitch plus equal adjust, and then your plus equal adjust. But obviously this is this isn't going to do anything at the moment. We're just tracking pitch and yaw, but we're not actually like using that anywhere. So I need to be able to create a direction vector from pitch and yaw. So gimbal lock occurs in the above yaw, and roll do the same thing. So if you don't adjust one, then no lock will occur. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. So I want a helper function up here. So I'm going to call this something like auto create direction const gain vector 3. Float pitch, float yaw, and this is going to return a vector 3. Again, return a gain vector 3. Okay, and I'm going to look up the maths for this because I always forget it, and then someone can double check for me. Someone who actually knows what they're talking about can double check. Are they the right way round? Adjust pitch is changing. Oh, well done. Glad someone's paying attention. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, we got there in the end. Okay, right, so I'm going to copy the maths because I can remember what it is, but you know, so return game vector 3 dot x equals stood cos of yaw times stood cos of pitch. And again, I think when we hit C++ 26, we can make this const expr. Stood sine of pitch, and then dot z equals stood sine of yaw times stood cos of pitch. And in fact, let's also game vector 3 normalize, CF that, and then bring that in there, bring that in there. In fact, now I don't need to specify that type because the compiler will figure it out. He says, okay. Oh, thanks, Clang format. Yeah, that would have been a fun bug. Good spot. Thanks, Julian and Abhishek. Okay, right, so now what we can do is, now that in theory, basically given the camera's axes of pitch and yaw, we can basically say, calculate where it's going to look at. So from there, what we can do is then, I think we probably need to construct this using that. I'm going to think. We'll leave it like that for the moment because I think we need to go back and fix that later, but I can't quite get my head around. I think let's actually adjust it first, and then we'll see if we'll go back and fix the constructor later. So which way is which? So let's do yaw first. I think that's right. So we should be able to move the mouse left and right and have the camera move left and right as well. So adjust yaw. So we'll set the yaw we'll add the adjustment to the new value, and then we will do direction equals create direction pitch and yaw. Create, and then our view will equal matrix for look at, and it will still be the position because that won't have changed as part of this operation, but then the direction, sorry, the new look at will be position plus direction, I think, and then up. Because we want to look the way we're facing, right? Yeah, so that is an excellent point, WG25. We will need to do that, yes, because if you pitch up too much, then you end up with this weird thing where the camera kind of flips up down. So we will clamp that in the future. I just want to kind of, like all things, I just want to get the mechanics working first. I think look at automatically normalizes it for. Oh, interesting. Sorry, may want to normalize the look at here. No, I don't think we do, because the look at is a position in 3D space, right? That is the point we are looking at, not the direction we're looking in. That's what we're calculating. So yeah, no, I think we want this to remain unnormalized, because that is basically given where we are and where we're looking, we want to effectively look just a little bit in front of us. But you know what? We'll see if it blends and we'll see what happens. So let's just check all this kind of blends first, or builds. Sorry. What have I gone wrong? Create pointer to member camera CP53. It doesn't like my function. We're going to ignore the fact that I forgot to save the header file again. Honestly. Amateur hour. Main CPP. Let's do camera dot adjust your 0.1f. That might be too slow. Let's try 0.1f. Let's just see if we can get it to kind of rotate on the spot. I mean, sure is panning eerily with relentless consistency to the right. So I think the maths is right. It's actually kind of, I don't know, I find my Sinister, it's like a CCTV camera. Okay, so now let's get that. Okay, so now we want to set the delta. We want to take the delta out of the event and apply that to the camera yaw. I think we'll do that first, and we're going to add pitch in a second. So let's get const auto delta x equals arg dot delta x, and then let's do. I know this from a fact that static const extra auto sensitivity equals float 0.001f. Otherwise, like, we were just moving a very small amount then, and the mouse delta is like going to be like 1 or 2, so it's going to be like, it's going to give us an absolute headache and make us feel quite ill. So let's do our delta times sensitivity, and now let's do camera dot adjust your delta x. The problem now is that I'm going to have to move the mouse to get the window over. Might need to be a little less sensitive, but also, yeah, you're right. It's doing something fun when it wraps around. I assume negative. Let's make that a little less sensitive. Yes, I will also need to lock the mouse to the center of the screen. Again, it's not something that's for us. We have to do it. We'll have to do that manually. Yeah, there's definitely some oddity going on somewhere. Like, just there, but it's also, if you go back, let me do. Let's do the pitch, all right? And see if that what that gives us. Oh, hang on a minute, I've got to actually wire up into main. Whoa, what's happened there? And then need to add delta y to the mouse event. As in, like, what we've already wired that up, right? Let's just see what happens with the other one. Okay, no worries. Okay. Oh, it's definitely. There's definitely something funny going on here. I suspect it's the map. It's got to be. I'm very hesitant to say it's got to be, because it normally is not. But I'm reasonably sure it's going to be the. Let me just double check my maths at the top here, based on what I've done before. Cos of yaw times cos of pitch, sine of pitch, sine of yaw times cos of pitch, and I do pitch yaw. It's probably the direction, yeah. So yeah, it is oscillating. let's Google this. So direction from pitch and yaw. There's the ask the Oracle. How do I convert pitch and yaw into a direction vector? Go. So it reckons it's cos of pitch times sine of yaw, sine of pitch, cos of pitch, cos of yaw. It reckons it's that. Yeah, but like, so I get your point, like convert them into an angle, but like the floats, they do already represent angles, right? It doesn't really matter what they are, they're just small increasing values. Like the pitch and the yaws just start off small and keep going. So interesting. Definitely a solvable problem. Like, I'm pretty sure games have already done this. I don't think I'm breaking new ground here. Direction. I don't know, because I want to set the new direction, right? That is the vector of which I am looking. Direction is the vector I'm looking down, right? So I need to create that from the pitch and yaw. So every time I adjust the pitch and yaw, the direction that I'm looking down has to change. Now the view is calculated as a place where the camera is and a point in 3D space it's looking at. The easiest way to calculate the point I'm looking at is to basically take where I am and add the direction to it. It basically means I'm always looking, my lookout is always a unit vector in front of my face down the angle I'm looking at, and then I have the up. So I'm pretty sure that's fine. What I don't get is why the pitch and yaw is it's oscillating. Pitch and yaw is between 1 and -1 always. I mean, that is kind of like it should be. I guess we could just print that out and have a look, right? Okay, so it is wrapping around because the value is getting too large. So if I know this is not necessarily the correct answer. If I make the sensitivity much smaller, way too small. I kind of feel like this is not not the answer. The lookout's position mark direction mark incorrect if the direction is only positive. Well, it doesn't matter, right? Because if I'm looking behind me. I see what you mean. I need to think about it. I'm definitely missing something. Let me just. We'll get there. I'm pretty confident we're going to get there. Let's. Just check what I've done is right. So I want to adjust, take the adjustment, add it to the pitch, create the new direction of pitch in yaw, and then look at I mean, we are using Euler angles, right? Is that... Like, I'm not using quaternions or anything. Hang on, what's that? Oh, that's to translate. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Interessant. Print the direction, just be safe. Yeah, okay, fine. Let's also do that. Good shout. Let's do. So let's here do log debug, and let's do pitch. For the sake of completeness, we'll do pitch, yaw, and direction. I'm not convinced clamping it is what we want, because I should be able to add arbitrary large adjustments, right? Because that just means you move the camera quicker, right? And it should work. So I'm not... Because I don't want to be able to... Clamping it would effectively change the maximum limit you can move, right? You want to be able to keep turning... You always want to be able to turning left and right. So this is the point where I start coming back on ourselves. So it's around here. Yeah, I thought clamp was only needed for up and down. I agree with Quaco on Twitch. I think clamp's only needed for up and down because if you go too far up or too far down, then the camera kind of flips upside down and it goes a bit weird. Oh, you mean clamp the adjustment? But again, that still doesn't help if I'm going to keep adding to it. Yeah, I should be able to 360 no scope with this, right? Or 180 no scope. Yeah, I mean the trig functions expect radians, right? So it should be between 0 and 2 pi. But again, what I'm saying is it doesn't matter. Like I should be able to just. It doesn't matter what I adjust here, whether I give it in like whether I give it like 0.1 or 1 or 10 or 100. It should effectively wrap round as if I'd moved that much. Which is why I'm confused, because I'm pretty sure this should work. Let's. Then my create direction function is probably wrong. Yeah, I strongly suspect it is this here is the culprit. So ChatGPT and I disagree with what the formula should be, which is fine, but it turns out so far we're both wrong. X needs to be negative of this. They all need to be negative. But again, like I don't really see how that would stop. Like, sure, but won't that just mean you kind of move the other way around? Like, how would that stop the wrapping around issue? I mean, maybe you're right. And it'd be great. And it'd be great if we could. Yeah, same issue. It just now moves the other way. Well, we're only. I don't think the Y's got anything to do with this because we're literally worrying about the pitch at the moment, right? Sorry, the yaw. So I mean, you can try it, but all I think that means is just that up and down is going to suddenly look the other way. Do I need to draw the vector diagram on some paper to figure it out? I mean, it might end up coming to that. Yeah, it's still the same issue. Okay, let's think about this logically, because we take a small adjustment, or it doesn't really matter the absolute value of the adjustment, right? We're moving some number of radians around. So we say, look, our yaw, which was this, we've now adjusted this. Let's, for starters, take this out. Let's just convince ourselves that the issue is purely to do with the yaw. So let's not worry about the up and down. Let's just constrain ourselves to a single axis. Let's also do the initial calculation as based on what we're doing here, right? So let's also start off doing that. Again, I don't think it'll make much of a difference, but let's... What has happened? Okay, let's start with that, and then we will just set the camera off on this as well. Yeah, we need to double check all the yaws and the pictures. Okay, so this still oscillates. We adjust our yaw, which starts off as 0. We create the direction from the pitch and the yaw, and this takes pitch and yaw in this order, so that's fine. And then we say, given where we are and some amount of space in front of us or behind us or wherever, calculate my look at. So camera translate is only called on arrow keys, so that shouldn't affect it. Oh, I bet you're right. Are we resetting this? Is it this? Oh, I think someone might have spotted it, because we call translate even if it's a 0 velocity. I think we still call it. Oh, I was really hoping that would be right. I was almost convinced that was right. That build? Oh no, it wouldn't build. Sorry, we didn't build it because of warning zeros. Hang on. All is not lost yet. All is not lost yet. We might have gone to a winner. There we go. There we go. Well done, SXS. What a fantastic spot. We were calling translate and then not properly updating it. So let's go for broke. Let's just throw everything back. Let's just throw it all back in and see if we've got it. And that. I think one of these is, my brain can't comprehend it. I think one of these is negated. I think they're all wrong. Moving right moves me left. Moving left, oh, that's a real. Moving up moves me down. That's making me feel quite ill. I suspect it's because I was right, and this should be cos sine, and then sine on the yaw. Yeah, we'll wrap it around in a second. Let's just we've got to apply arbitrary negative numbers to our values first. So, okay, up and down is still knackered. So if we go all the way down, then I don't know if you can see that. It flips upside down, and then we start coming back the other way. We do need to clamp that. I feel that's more of the domain of the game than the camera. The camera will just do the maths, and you should not send it bad values. Okay, and then this is straight up going to be just delta y. Whew, man. A little bit longer, because I want to get moving, working with the camera. Oh, that is nice. That is nice. I like it. So, it doesn't really matter which way we face. We're always moving along these, along the original axes. So there's a simple-ish fix to that, which is to basically take So let's do velocity. Let's change this to const auto walk direction equals vector 3 dot x equals 0.0f dot y equals 0.0f. I should change this so that like default constructing one gives you a 0 vector, because we're going to use that a lot, but hey ho. A problem for another stream, I think. Okay. And then it does want to be const, because at the end of it we will go game, sorry, walk direction equals game vector 3 normalize walk direction before I get shouted at. Okay, now we can basically say if key state game key D, then walk direction plus equals camera dot right. Yeah, exactly. So I'm just going to check this works. So now if we press D, we should move along what the camera considers to be right, rather than sort of like the world orientation of right. Okay, so that it's moving pretty fast, but I think that is right. Yeah, like I can just constantly strafe around it by moving it. Might need to scale that back a bit. I don't have scalar multiplication yet for the vector class. Do I want to add that now? No, I'm just gonna speed equals 0.01f. I'll fix this up next stream. We'll finish. We'll redo. We need to redo some of the maths classes anyway. So this is horrible code. I don't like this at all. This should be done with operator overloading. But for the sake of just kind of getting us there. We'll just do that today, and then we'll redo the maths classes, because I think that's going to be a bit of a slightly bigger refactor than we think. It's still quite fast. Let's still feel like we're. Oh, is it because I then normalize it? Oh, I need to do the. Need to do the normalization. I'll need to do that after that. The game is rendered as fast as it will render with vsync on. There we go. That's a little bit. I think it's a little bit slower. Let's just note that to R4. Okay. So now we can just do 1, 4, 9, if the A key is on, then negate that, and then if key state game key W, then walk direction plus equals camera dot direction yank 155b, and then rs minus, and then what we'll also do as well is do q and E, and this will be game. I should actually return the up vector of the camera, but again, let's just get something working. Oh my goodness, none of that is right. It's still too early to say what kind of game this is going to be. We just don't know. It's just too early to say. It could be terrible. It might not end up being anything. Right. So, whoa, I'm flying now. My S key doesn't work. Neither does my E. I've messed up somewhere. But let's just quickly fix those. What have I done wrong? Oh, because that should be E. That's why. Yeah, 2 S keys. We got it. We got there in the end. Okay, so now now we can fly around a 3D scene we built, which I think is pretty freaking cool. Oh, there's the file plane. Yeah, Twitch helped absolutely. Well, sorry, and YouTube. I think the proverbial chat helped. That's cool. I like that. It's a nice effect. That'll be the picture for the YouTube community board. Right. Let's just quickly comment this up because we're professionals here. So allow camera to be orientated. Yeah, commit, integrate, camera changes, and then we're gonna go 4. We're gonna go 3. We're gonna check the tags because I always forget. We're gonna go 4. We're gonna tag this as stream 8, and then we're gonna stick that in the git hole. Yes, we can now see the mistake in the triangles, the incorrect winding order. So I think so I'm basically going to start wrapping that up here, which so before everyone disappears off for whatever you want to do with the rest of your Sunday evening, morning, afternoon, whatever. What we're going to do next, so let's have a quick look at the notes. We've got maths and camera, we've nailed that. I think the maths needs a little bit of love, but I might do that as like a tail end of another stream. We've done the scene. We really need to render with indices. Like, I think it is absurd that we're still just squirting every single triangle every single time into the graphics card, and in fact one of those triangles is wrong. So I think next time we're going to do rendering with indexes. What I also want to do is, and something I've never done before, is try storing the vertex data and the index data in the same buffer. I know that modern OpenGL supports that. Some people say it's better, some people say it's worse, but for me it's different and it's a bit of a learning experience. So definitely going to try that. Probably use named buffers as well, try and get some of that sort of sweet DSA in there, including this. So I think once those are done, then we'll be in a good place to tackle, or after that we'll either do some mesh loading, or if we're kind of happy with the boxes, I think we should definitely start doing some lighting. I'm going to just slide resource loading in to the end of a stream because I don't think it'll take too long. And then what I really want to do is to get onto some of this like fun graphic stuff and then use some of this. So I think we're making pretty good progress. I think I'm quite pleased with where we are. I think we just need to tidy up the rendering a little bit and then start getting in some frame buffers, and then we can start doing some fun like rendering effects. But thank you very much for coming along and spending your Sunday with me. It's been great. Oh, hang on, let's see if we can spread the love on Twitch. I believe I can send you somewhere else. Let's snooze the next ad. Who's around? Who's who's in this category doing something fun. Anyone mentioning C++? Who's doing C++? Some people doing advent of code. Yep, but anyway, thanks for coming along. Absolutely brilliant. I'm just trying to do the good Twitch thing and send someone on, but I can't see anyone who's doing anything that's kind of similar to what we were doing. Last time I found a C++ dev. A lot of people doing advent of code. Can I search and filter? Search live C++. Nope, that's for channels. I want to C++. Okay, never mind. Not today. Maybe another time. Okay, brilliant. Thanks so much for coming along. Usual streaming schedule. Should be back Wednesday. We're going to do some more graphic stuff. We're going to get some more cubes. They're going to look pretty soon. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll catch you in the next one.